mortgages and loan programs, staging tips and ideas, real estate contracts, market trends, home values, and more. It's a talk radio show, and you can follow along online. If you have any questions during the show, please call 781-837-4900. We'd love to talk real estate. If you missed any of our shows, you can listen on my podcast at talkrealestateradio.com.
Coming up on 15, here we go.
A one-on-one consultation with me regarding your home sale or your home purchase, you can connect with me anytime at bostonconnect.com or 781-826-8000. Now, sit back, relax, take good notes, and let's talk real estate.
And hello to all our South Shore neighbors. You are listening to Talk Real Estate Roundtable with Boston Connect Real Estate Broker Team. My name is Melissa Wallace, and I am here in the studio with my team member, Mary Baker. Hello, everybody. Hello. Sharon will be joining us shortly. She will be joining us via Zoom, and also via Zoom, we have Dustin in Boston.
Good evening, world.
Hello, hello.
Oh, see, I'm watching us on I was watching the Facebook feed and we had a lag and I was going, what's going on there?
I know, right? Yeah, so tonight, I don't know if we should give a little sneak peek before we go to our traffic break. I know Lisa's going to be popping in pretty soon, but we do have a special guest tonight. And Mary, why don't you introduce him, because you are his favorite. He is your favorite.
We don't have favorites. So tonight we're actually going to be talking about, we called it Winter Woes when we advertised it. It's not really winter woes, but kind of things to be looking for when you're purchasing a house in the winter months and when you're selling a house in the winter months. And we thought, who better to help us through that than Steve Cook, the owner of Imperial Inspection Services.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
And one other to add to that is, how do you prepare your house for the winter too? Just being a regular homeowner, so you cover all three on one.
Certainly. You must be reading my notes because I just wrote that down like right before we came on. So how have you been?
I've been doing fine. Yeah, it's been busy. It's just starting to slow down. In the last, this last week, it's starting to slow down the market. But prior to that, it's been very, very busy out there.
I can only imagine how busy we are, and then you getting called out to multiple different home inspections.
Right.
I know you're not taking any days off recently, huh?
Nope, you cover 7, but you do what you have to do.
Yep. Absolutely. You got to work. What is it? Work hard, play hard.
Work hard, play harder.
Play hard. Work hard, play hard. That's a little inside joke for everybody. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. And then Steve, when we get back from Lisa's traffic report, we'll go into a little bit more in depth of just what maybe you've been seeing a little bit of, because we're always curious what our preferred professionals are seeing out there. And of course, you are very much preferred.
Thank you.
What am I? I'm schmoozing a little bit too much, huh?
No, I feel like everybody knows that you love.
Well, I asked Steve like how everything was, and he looks at me and he goes, "I had a good chimney the other day. You missed it." Because I'm the chimney girl, and I go.
I was one of the other listing brokers in the office there, and I said, "Geez, you got to get Mary out here right now to take a look at it. She'll evaluate it and tell you whether it's a house that's pulling away from the chimney or the chimney that's pulling away from the house.
Yeah,
and using a ladder would be better."
I keep telling everybody I'm going to retire and become a home inspector. I'm going to retire from real estate and become a home inspector.
Yeah, we'll put you out there with Keith, and Keith can train you.
Oh yeah, how's Keith doing?
He's doing excellent.
Yeah, didn't they just have a baby? And probably must have been a year ago.
Just about I think it was like 9 months ago or so on there.
Oh, wow.
And yep, Andy and Meg, they just had a new one about 1 month ago.
Shay.
Yeah.
Baby Shay.
Yep.
Oh, and we have Sharon right before
Sharon.
We're gonna break for Lisa.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Excellent.
I see my father was just calling me. He was probably worried that I didn't hear my voice. So I'm okay, Dad. Steve, I hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
I did. And yourself?
Yeah, it was quiet,
Yep.
different, but I did a little sort of mini self-quarantine for 2 weeks, just so my parents felt comfortable. So
Absolutely, which is a smart thing to do. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Lisa standing by, let's interrupt.
Okay, well, we have Lisa DeMilo from the Traffic Center, WATD Traffic Center. Lisa, this is Sharon. I hope you're having a great day, and I hope your Thanksgiving was wonderful. I can't hear her. Can you?
Mm-mm.
I just sent the agenda. Mary, I think I sent it to you too, if you wanted to grab it. I'll print it. Where am I?
Let me see. Oh, I did get it.
Well, I haven't put my new computer together yet. So like, I don't know any of my passwords. So it took me a while to get some stuff together. And I'm making an excuse and all I hear is Charlie Brown's teacher.
Wah, wah, wah. Is that what that is?
We now return to Talk
Yeah.
Real Estate, sponsored by Boston Connect Real Estate Services on 95.9 WATD.
Yay!
That's what I think of. And we are back. You are listening to Talk Real Estate with the McNamara Broker Team. I'm joined in studio with Melissa. I am Mary Baker. I have Sharon on Zoom, Dustin Hughes on Zoom, and our lovely Steve Cook from
Good
Imperial
evening.
Inspection Services. Sorry, I have a hard time focusing when I can't see us because Melissa's doing the Facebook feed. So I'm like, no, everybody's smiling, but I'm very interactive in the idea that I'm less on the radio and more on the Zoom, I guess. So tonight we're going to be talking about not necessarily winter woes, but kind of what to look for when you're purchasing a house in the winter months, and what to how to prep your house when you're selling it in the winter months, kind of twofold. So we have Steve joining us just to kind of give the perspective of, we see a lot of things from a real estate perspective, but what does a professional say when they're walking through your house, who knows all of the systems and what to be looking for, the good, the bad, the ugly. So Steve, just for everybody who obviously all of our listeners know you very well, but why don't you just tell them a little bit about yourself, just to give a brief intro back to who you are.
Sure. Just been inspecting, homes professionally since 1982, and along with home inspections, we've been doing radon inspections, lead paint inspections, Title V, and insect inspections for wood-boring insects, termites, carpenter ants, things of that nature. And I've been doing that since '82. And we have a satellite office in Braintree, and we have a main office on Cape Cod, and we perform inspections 7 days a week. And we have 3 other home inspectors, one being Keith Johnson. We have David Edgren and Jay Bowie. And also on staff is Scott Sheehan, and he does all the coordinations with advertising and radon pickups and setups and water samples.
Oh, I had no idea he did advertising too.
Yes.
I didn't know you did
That's
water
about
samples.
praise.
Wait a second.
Yep.
I didn't know you did water samples. Did I know that?
I think, yes, we've talked about it a couple times on the show, but most of the time it's in Plimpton and Carver.
Yeah, because is Plumpton all wells as well?
Yeah, Plimpton and Carver is 100% well water there. Yes.
I knew that Carver was. I didn't know about Plimpton, and I honestly didn't remember that you did the water inspections too.
Yep.
So Steve, I don't know if you've been on our show since we sort of decided we're doing it more like a round table. So it's just sort of having a couple like bright ideas, and then each, everybody just sort of like pitching in on what their thoughts are. Sort of like it's always been, I guess. But we know something came up with me in one of our inspections this week. And I was like, who's going to know the answer to that is Steve Cook. And then we were talking about the radio show, and I was like, hey, we have to have Steve on. So thank you for joining us last minute.
Sure.
But I'm going to jump right to my question because I'm sort of curious. Are termites active right now?
Usually if they're active, they buy the chimneys. And if the chimney has the exhaust from the boiler or the furnace exhausted into that chimneys like Miami, it stays probably about 40 to 50 degrees, and the termites tend to hibernate right around that area. And I've seen them active right into the middle of January and become active again in early March, because that chimney just stays warm and the termites don't go to, know to go to hibernate for the winter.
Huh.
What about if the chimney isn't being used?
If the chimney's not being used, then chances are they're going to be inactive. So usually when it goes below, say 40 degrees, termites, become, they go deep in the ground, maybe 2, 3 feet to 4 feet down, and they hibernate or go inactive for the winter. Same with carpenter ants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mary, what did you think the other day that hibernated, or was that Casey?
What did I think that?
It might have
I
been
think a lot of
Casey.
things hibernate.
Coyotes? Do coyotes and fox hibernate? I don't think so.
I don't think coyotes do. 'Cause I see them out in my backyard still in the
That
middle of
wasn't
winter.
me.
I see
That
their
wasn't
tracks.
me. For the record, I saw a coyote just on Gorham Ave just the other day, walking by me. So I knew.
Well, if it's that close to you, it's probably rabid. Stay away.
Seriously.
So but let's get
Okay.
right into our topic. Again, it's sort of winter worries, winter woes when purchasing a house in the winter time. And last year we were very fortunate, Steve, as you know, with the winter weather and snow. We didn't have a lot. I think that the Farmer's Almanac is predicting the same thing for this year, and I definitely believe them. So
Which would be great, yes.
I'm going to go with that. Or I'll have Mark buy another plow because he bought a plow last year and then we had no snow. So that worked out perfectly.
There you go. Push some stuff around in the backyard with it.
Exactly. So Dustin, Steve, I think that you've met Dustin in the past, no?
Yes, I have, yes.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. And then did you know that he is actually now the fiance of my daughter, Casey?
I did not know that.
Isn't that exciting?
Congratulations to
Thank you
both
very
of
much.
Yeah. So when did that happen, Dustin? October, it was after the bar exam. So October 5th, the bar exam. So the week after.
Something like that.
October 19th.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, what she said.
October 19th.
October 19th. Okay, that's when it was.
Even I remember. Gosh.
That's funny.
Kidding.
So Dustin, do you want to get into some of the questions we have for Steve, or just how do you want to approach this?
Yeah, I always like when we have people like Steve on because I also get to become a spectator and enjoy listening to someone who actually knows what they're talking about, opposed
We
to
know
myself.
what we're talking about. That was a nice, like, little.
Yeah, did you hear
We know
that?
some stuff.
No.
They'll be
I'm
buying
talking
a
about
house in no
myself.
time, so.
Yeah, we'll see.
Exactly.
But so really what I'm getting at there is that this is just as much Steve so as anyone else's. So whatever he needs to talk about, feel free. And
Yeah, probably the number one thing, because 37% of all homes, the pipes tend to, first burst in the basement if you don't take care of, winterizing the home, meaning shutting off the outside watering faucets or the spigots outsides, and then shutting them off from the inside area. And then insulating your pipes is main thing, and that black clip-on insulation is pretty inexpensive. And by clipping that on the pipes will kind of give you that little safeguard, especially if the temperature in the basement or if you have a crawl space in the house, will help prevent any of the pipes from freezing during the colder season.
when's your recommendation to start winterizing?
Winterizing is definitely is shutting off those outside watering spigots. And if you haven't had a problem in the past, chances are you don't have any air infiltration coming into those areas. But insulating the pipes downstairs in the basement is always a good thing to do. Even if it's in the summertime, if you're insulating your hot water pipes, that keeps everything warm and stops it from cooling down. So you get two things for one. You get that little preventative for from pipes freezing up during the wintertime and bursting once they thaw.
Huh. I've never
One
thought
of
of that.
the things, Steve, that I know that Mark gets calls on a lot of time is sometimes people will, they forget to undo the hose, even though like they have a frost-proof silk caulk on the exterior of the
Yep.
home. So they think that they're okay. So they don't shut off their water and they forget to take off the hose. And then that causes some big old issues come spring.
Right, even if it's a frost-free one there, if the valve is in the open position and you leave the hose on that pipe is still charged. And when that water freezes inside the garden hose and inside where the faucet is, that's going to crack that on the outside and create damage and make some nice springtime work for Mark.
One of the things I was thinking about, sorry, Mary, and I promise not to hog the show, but you know how I am, especially when Steve is here and I don't get to go to the home inspections as much anymore. But one of the things I'm thinking about and why I love the roundtable is because you say something and then it makes me think. So it's perfect for my like ADD. So I can squirrel in any direction I want. But and you think about like, we're talking about these things that happen in the winter. So I would guess that, Mary, when you're out with our buyer clients, you think of these things in the winter. Like if you're looking at a house on a hill in the winter, you're going to think about how icy the driveway is in the winter.
Mhm.
But if you're looking at it in the summer, you tend not to think about it, which is why it's so important to have a home inspection. I mean, if we have a client that thinks it's the best way for them to get an offer accepted, we make them sign a waiver, because we always say you need to have a home inspection, and we always refer Steve and the crew. But this is a really good reason why, because is anyone ever going to think about the outside silcock when it's 90 degrees out? But it's still things that you mention to people as you're going around the house with them, right?
Yep, and a lot of times, probably about 80% of the people follow with us during the inspection. That way they get that little, learning experience of where the main water shut off. So if a pipe breaks and say it looks like a Three Stooges movie, they know where to head to first to shut down the whole house, and then, evaluate what the actual problem is. Plus we show them where their outside shutoffs are, and if they have like a 2-car garage and they have water going through that garage, where that shut off is, and open up the outside one for it to drain down. And that way it's some preventative, so they don't get into that situation.
It's such a funny dynamic. Someone, making such a large purchase and such a huge investment as their own, and then having someone else come in who's never been there and show them actually how the house works.
Right. I've had people ask me what the little white thing is by the front door, and that's the doorbell. Some people just don't know. If you've lived in a condo or in the city, and a lot of people don't know what that little white button does.
Well, now doorbells are very deceiving, so it could just be anything.
It could be a
They're
ring
out there.
doorbell.
It's a camera.
It's really a camera.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
recording everything.
Mary,
So,
you
and then
have
the other is if you have the old, if you have an older style home, something that was built, say prior to say 1965, a lot of people don't do it. And I see it on home inspections all the time. They don't put their storm windows down, and you get to the house and the screens are still there, and they're losing, probably $40 per season, per window if they don't put the storm windows down. And that's
I'm
another
thinking
thing.
of my antique house that doesn't have the storm windows down on the front of the house, and I think the hose is still connected, Sam. I don't think our pipes in the basement are insulated. Mark, help me if they're not. I have a big list of things I have to do when I get home.
You're going to get right on that tomorrow.
Well, I finally, after 3 years maybe, I finally have my basement cleaned to the point where I was down there and I was like vacuuming behind something. I was like, I think I'm ready to have Steve come and do an inspection live at my house now, because
There you
I
go.
have it cleaned.
We were going to do that about a year ago,
I know. I finally have the basement clean though, so I'm not embarrassed.
but we did the radon.
Let's plan on doing that in the spring. We can do a
Sure.
live show.
Absolutely.
Virtual. Yeah, I think that would be
Accumulate anything over the winter then, Sharon.
uh-huh.
You can't accumulate anything over the winter.
I know.
No
I'll
Christmas presents for you.
Then the other thing is to just do a walk around usually this time of year here and just kind of look at your roof, just as a homeowner, and see if anything's curling up or you have any missing shingles. And this is the opportune time to do that temporary repair rather than waiting, for the middle of January when it's dripping inside and, it's hard to get someone out to get up on the roof to do the repair.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
That is a good one.
Yeah. And then the main thing, like we talk about, is where we had the ice dams 4 to 5 years ago, we had the big problem is clean your gutters, get everything out of them, get the water flow, and you're less likely, and you'll help reduce the, the beginnings of ice dams inside of a home too.
Can we go back to the windows for a second? What
Yep.
are your thoughts on screens? Because I like to take my screens off of my windows in the winter, and it's basically because I like looking through a clear window, and I think that my candles look better without the screens, but also because I feel like the snow sticks to them and makes them, you know what I mean? How the snow and ice will stick to the windows.
it up.
Yeah, especially if you have the like the fiberglass type material, will cause the screens to sag. And if you have the steel ones, but if you take them out, it's, you get that 4 months of high winds and snow that's not going to affect the screens, and they're going to last a lot longer.
So the screens don't help with any of that heat loss at all,
Zero.
really, right?
Yeah, just bugs. That's it.
Just bugs, yeah.
Just bugs.
I'm
No.
not opening the windows in the winter.
Plus, it gives you a chance, they're down in the basement. If you want to repair a couple or send them out to be repaired, that's the time to do it. Bring it
That's
down
a
to
really
the
good
hardware
idea.
store.
Good
And,
tip.
yeah, and I think that they're like
Steve.
$25 a piece to repair them and get them done for the spring.
Donna Bagney does them too, by the way. She did all the ones for the office.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she made all the screens.
Yeah, she did them all herself. Yeah.
Handy girl. well, so the storm windows, I don't even know if some of them are like, I mean, the old part of the house was built in the 1800s. Obviously, the storm windows weren't around in the 1800s. I have no idea when they came around, but they're jammed into place. Like they don't even kind of go up and down anymore. I don't
Right.
even think my window's open anymore.
Yeah. So sometimes you got to unscrew all those little teeny little Phillips head screws from the outside, take the storm window off completely, bring it in the garage or downstairs and start working on it to, free it up. And
Or we could just replace the windows, huh?
you could just replace the windows. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I am the path of least resistance.
Uh-huh.
That is the path.
You're not going to bring them into the garage and fix them then.
No, there's a couch in my
Can't
car.
fit into the garage.
Okay, sorry. That's just I put another thing on my list, clean gutters. Because we have so many peaks at our house that I always worry constantly about ice dams and water penetrating. And I mean, our roofs are relatively newer, especially the in-law portion, but we just have so many peaks and areas that water can just get trapped if we don't clear off the roof.
Mhm.
So gutters is a good one.
Right. And then the other is trees. Look at the overhanging branches. A lot of times if the branches are, say, 6 feet above your roof, as soon as you get a snow load or ice on there, those branches are going to come down. They're going to stick to your roof. And then if you get a windy day like it was today or the other day, it's going to start tearing some of your shingles off the roof and damaging your gutters. So you want to get those trimmed back. And plus, you find that the rodents and the animals don't use that like the Zakin Bridge to come over the animals, right across the branches. So you always want to get those trimmed at least 6 feet minimally away from the home.
You don't want a lot of overhang anyway, because even in the summer, like, doesn't cause like mildew of growth or
Yeah, if you're trying to grow moss on your roof, that's the best way to try to do it.
yeah, keep it nice and shade, no sun, a lot of moisture.
Absolutely. Yep.
Don't do any of that.
We're just talking about roofs a little bit too. And I know we'll get into Mary's favorite topic about how to know if someone has insulation or not, enough insulation in their roof area or in their attic. But with the roofs, one of the things Mark actually he did some Christmas lights on the building. And I was like, well, how do you get them to stay up there? And he's like, I'm not putting screws and nails and everything else into the roof just so you can have Christmas lights. So do you see a lot of people doing that? And that will probably cause damage, right? Because water can then penetrate in. Because sometimes I see the nail coming, when we're in the attic and you can see like water staining around the nails.
Right. But most of the time, the water stains you see around the nails, that's just from condensation in the attic and not from, someone penetrating it, putting up Christmas lights or holiday lights. But they do sell clips, which you can clip on the gutters and you can clip on the trailing edge or the drip edge of the roof, which will hold your lights up there without damaging your roof too.
That's what he ended up doing. I said,
Yeah, you get those clips, go right to the Christmas tree shop and they sell a bag of like 50 and it's like $15 and usually good for the season.
I said to him, I was like, he put them up the first day and they looked great, but they were a little crooked. And I said, I'd like them to be as straight as the pinstripe on your boat. So they look
he got back up there.
You're going to put a B and an R on the top of the roof of the building, right?
Exactly.
I just learned so you said drip edge earlier. I just learned what that is. Because we didn't have them on the older part of the house, and we just had some trim replaced. Sure. So can you explain what a drip edge is real quick? Because I think
drip edge in most cases is a piece of aluminum that runs along the outside edge of the roof, whether it be on the gable side of the house or above the gutter area, and that kind of gives protection of the wood that's below that, so water doesn't get into it. The older homes, sometimes they take a piece of cedar shingle, which is similar to like the siding. They turn it around backwards and they do a starter course with that along the edge of the drip edge right by where the gutter is.
Interesting.
And help stop any water from getting underneath that first course of shingle.
Interesting. I thought it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go, because mine has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking
about.
No,
I was just going to say, I was so used to not seeing the drip edge on that part, so the area that we had replaced, that I thought that the contractor did it wrong. I was like, Sam, you have to tell him to get back up there and fix that because that looks terrible. What is that aluminum that's now exposed? And he goes, no, this is exactly how it's supposed to be. We actually had it the wrong way.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. So now I have to stare at it all the time.
And
And
a
I
lot of
still
times
don't.
on inspections, some people have done it themselves on the drip edge. Instead of letting the shingles overhang the drip edge by a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch, they cut it back and you can see the edge of the drip edge. So when it hits that piece of metal, water goes right underneath the roof.
Oh, even better.
Yeah, that's even worse. Yeah.
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 Well, so everything that I'm saying right now, too, this little honey-do list that I'm creating, all the things I should have had an inspection.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would have known all of this prior to.
Yeah. But for energy conservation, especially now, is probably called Mass Save, and they're the best resource. And depending on the program or whatever they have for the week, they'll come out, take a look at your house, and make any recommendations for insulation, upgrades for light bulbs, things of that nature inside the home. And that's a free service for them to come out. And they do have the actually where they do it right over your phone, your iPad at this point, where they'll walk through the house if you don't want them coming to your home physically.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yep.
That's a good idea for you to do, Mary.
So we actually did have, I think I've talked about this before. We did have Mass Save come out and they did all of our light bulbs. They replaced all of our light bulbs with just the LED for free. But the reason that we actually had them come in was insulation in our attic.
Sure.
And we ended, what is the insulation? It's going to escape me that you really, really do not want to have.
That's vermiculite.
Vermiculite. That is what we have on.
Vermiculite contains asbestos. You don't know unless you have it tested, but it's like those little squares, like a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch, and they almost look like you put it into the dirt that plants are in, like the perlite, but it's called vermiculite. And some vermiculite contains asbestos.
So I don't think that we never went the route of having it tested, but I remember them coming in and saying, they couldn't put additional insulation until we had it treated and or tested and had it all pulled out.
Yeah, that's probably definitely vermiculite. And then if you have the knob and tube wiring, a lot of times
knob and tube. That's one thing I don't have.
Even knob and tube. That's and what you don't want to put insulation over the knob and tube wiring because that stuff will tend to overheat once you insulate it.
That's if you have active knob and tube, I'm assuming, not if it's just disconnected.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, but so we did have Mass Save come in and I want them to come back because we could severely benefit. I'm sure they would have suggested getting new windows from having them come through, and energy efficiency wise, my house is quite large now. So the bills are higher. But that's something that we have to have done first, just for the safety of everybody.
Sure. That's a good thing. Yeah.
Then circle back to my random question for a second.
Yeah, let's go back to your question.
Sorry, I think of this probably once a day because I think there's a commercial during Jeopardy and I don't think about it again until I see it. Until now we're talking about roofs. What are the advantages of a metal roof, if there are any?
Roofs are expensive, but they're a great roof, and all your neighbors know when it starts to rain, and you know when it starts to rain.
And do you hear it inside the house?
Oh yeah, you hear it inside your house, absolutely. But it's not that bad, but it's a great roof, the metal roof, and they last 30 to 50 years, especially if you got a sharp pitch on your roof too.
But the cost is the big downfall.
The what?
The cost is the big downfall.
The cost, but once you do it, it's there pretty much, forever, and never have to maintain it.
Yeah, obviously not knowing anything about roofs. I saw the commercial and I was like, well, that makes sense. How come everyone doesn't have metal roofs?
The only thing with that is you got to put little guards down at the bottom. So as the snow, when it melts, instead of it sliding off in one huge sheet,
yep,
it will break it up into smaller chunks. So you never want to park your car below a steep angled metal roof. Turn it into a Mini Cooper in no time.
Right in
They have a lot of them up north, don't they? A lot of. I feel like I see them up north a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, they have the little cutters, or they have the little blades on there, so as the snow comes down, it breaks it up, so you don't have those large sheets coming down.
One thing I know for sure is Steve's one-liners. My goodness, I can tell Dustin hasn't heard many of them, so use them all tonight.
Well, my favorite is when we're actually with clients and we're going through a home inspection, and he'll make a little side comment joke. And they look at me with these tears in their eyes and absolute terror. I'm like, no, he's not serious. It's not, he's just joking with me. There's not going to be a monsoon of rats that are going to come out and steal me.
If you see me run quickly behind me. That's what you want to do.
Absolutely. I've only seen you do that once.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, we should leave. I don't like this.
And then the other great thing during the winter time is not that we're having, we didn't have that much snow last year, is marking your walkways, your flower beds and things like that. So, go taking the snow blower and running it right across, next year's growth that are coming up. Or if you have stones in there, all of a sudden, you ruin your snow blower, going over the top. Or if you have a plow service that comes by, you don't want them, taking out your walkway or, digging up your garden with the blade. So at least you know where to push all this stuff too.
Okay, so I have a funny story. You ready for it?
Okay.
So Mark, we had a lot of snow one year. I mean, plenty of years. We've been married 28 years. And he was out snow plowing one night and it was dark and windy. It was just like, he was like all covered with ice and everything. And it was miserable out. And I emptied the trash after dinner and everything. And I just took the bag and I had thrown it out the side door because I was like, I'm not going out in a blizzard to put this in a trash barrel. Well, we got so much snow that he didn't see it. And it was covered with white snow. And he took the snow blower and there goes the trash barrel. All over the
I would be so mad.
I think of it every single time it snows now, though, when I'm gonna throw my trash out. I have that fond little memory. Wasn't so fond for me, but glass was like being thrown out all over at him. So anyways, that's my funny story.
Oh, okay.
So don't do it, Karen.
Don't do that.
Yeah, but
fine.
even when the snow's not down and the stakes are in, you have to pay attention to them because I walked into one yesterday here, taking the trash out. I was alone, so I mean, I wasn't embarrassed or anything, but and I just kept walking.
Yeah.
Bend over. It's fine.
Those are still out. Yeah. All right. What is that? That was a great tip, though. But with the landscaping, I mean, one of the things too, Steve, is when you're doing your inspections, are you giving people, any, advice or anything about the landscaping aspect of the homes?
Oh, sure. Yeah. And the main thing is the wood soil contact, because a lot of times over the years, the mulch, tends to build up along the foundation. And all of a sudden you find a situation where the siding is sitting in the ground. And that kind of makes an attraction for, termites and carpenter ants. Like on Alyssa's house in Marshfield, remember that years ago, where that front wall was sitting right down on the ground, and we were just, pulling termites out of, the ground there.
I have your hand full of termites. I have a picture of it somewhere.
Yep.
I can find it at the 7 o'clock break. Yep.
I've never seen that.
Yep.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Mm-hmm. Every so often I come across it and I was like, what is that? Oh, that's Steve Cook's hand with a handful of termites at Alyssa's
There you go.
house.
That's actually one of the first things that I notice when I walk up to a house. Like very first thing, I think I'm better almost exteriorly than I am internally.
You and chimneys, leaning chimneys is your thing.
Yeah, that's why I usually route around, right, on the chimney, if it's one that's set in the ground. That's why I always tend, when we go around the inspections, is to route around a little bit where the chimney joins up with the house where the soil is. And usually if termites are there, they'll be active in that area.
I feel with termites too, like we just had a situation on one of our listings where it came up in the inspection. This is an inheritance, the house. The woman grew up there. That's our client, and obviously hasn't lived there for years, has her own family and everything. But termites did come up in the inspection, and I think the person who's more surprised about there being termites, other than the buyer, is the seller, because termites is, don't you agree? It's just one of those things. Is if you have termites, then you definitely do something to get rid of them.
Right, and you don't know unless you have an inspection, or you put your foot through the floor, and that prompts someone to come out there and take a look and say, geez, you got a termite problem, and you got a the floor too, that needs to be fixed. And
that's happened. Mary's Betty Boop heel was stuck in we just sold that house
I told that story to the buyers as we were walking out the back deck. I was like, oh, I'm gonna miss this house. I put my heel right through that board right there.
Not that board, because they replaced the whole thing.
Oh
So,
yeah, but like it was right there.
yeah.
that happens. It's like that wall that was out that house when I first met you, Mary. It was years ago. I pushed on the front wall in the house.
Oh yeah.
And that whole wall almost fell out of the house.
That was the only time I ever remember you saying, meh, there was 2 times. So it was that, and you said, okay, maybe we shouldn't all be in here. And then there was one bathroom, and it was very tiny, I remember, and we had all kind of crowded into the bathroom, and you took your big poker and you poked right through the floor, and you go,
Yeah.
maybe you should back up.
Listen, I'll stand in one spot at the same time.
Like,
Oh my God.
are we gonna fall through?
Already inspected the basement. We don't have to go down there again.
Yep.
Yeah, all of you are already sitting down there through the new entrance from the
Could have
bathroom.
installed an elevator instead.
There you go. Just a dumb waiter, up and down.
We don't want to scare our listeners. Again, everybody, you are listening to Talk Real Estate Roundtable with Sharon McNamara and the McNamara Broker team here on WATD. If you have any questions for us, Ben is in studio, so we can take calls. We're live tonight with our one and only good friend, Steve Cook from Imperial Inspection Services, 781-837-4900, 781-837-4900. And we're also on Facebook Live right now, so you can find us probably everywhere, Mel.
Everywhere. So Pembroke Connect, and any of the Connect pages, Boston Connect Real Estate, McNamara Broker team, we're everywhere.
All right, send us your questions if you have any questions. It doesn't have to be about our topic that we have tonight, but we do have Steve here, who is the best of the best when it comes to inspections. And I know that because I said it. So I believe it.
We've seen him in action one.
A lot of
And
years.
it's our show, so we can say whatever the heck we want. So, we've been using you for years. I mean, Steve, just years and years. And, it's just, when you have somebody who does the right thing for your clients, it's awesome to feel like they're in good hands. So thank you for always
You're
taking
doing an inspection. You can look at it like you're doing it for a family member, and you want them to know everything about the house. And sometimes you get a lot of problems with the home there, but we don't know the price. So sometimes the price of the house reflects the condition, and a lot of people know what they're buying.
Yeah. And there have been many a times when we're the listing agent and you're coming in with the buyer, and there've been a couple transactions that over the years, because we've done so many with you, that some of the transactions haven't stayed together because of the information you've given. I don't live in these houses, so you know what I mean. It isn't. I don't know anything about them either. So I think it's just great that everybody knows exactly what they're purchasing. So some people go forward with that information where other people are, a little skittish about the same information. So
Absolutely.
where are we, Dustin, on time? And what are some of our other things that we have?
I want to talk about pools.
Mm.
Mary, you guys have a pool, right?
Yes.
And Sharon, you have a pool.
Yes.
Steve, do you have a pool?
I do not know.
All right, perfect. So me and you are looking for a pool, and you're the home inspector. How do you go about that in the winter when it's closed? Maybe you don't have access to it, figuring out if it's up to par.
You don't. It's like checking air conditioning once it goes below, say 60 to 55 degrees. You can't check air conditioning on the home, so you don't know to the spring. Or you take the cover off the pool in your instance. You can't tell whether it's gunite or it's a liner or what you have going on. And the same thing comes into play during the summertime when it gets above like 85, 90 degrees. We can't realistically run the heat inside someone's home. So we can tell you, geez, you do have heat, but how well or not well it works, we're not allowed, we can't ascertain that.
Well, Mary, why don't you talk about like some of the things that you maybe can put into an offer in regard to a pool if you can't, inspect it in the wintertime?
Yeah, so this is something that we kind of, I think, experience just because of, the winter months, and just how do you protect yourself, trying to figure out what the best way to do that is. Putting it in an offer that you can inspect after the fact doesn't really hold much weight. But at the end, we can ask that the seller represent that the last time upon closing the pool, everything was functional, that it was a gunite pool or it was a liner pool, so that if anything happens over that time, no, the buyer isn't really protected. But the seller has represented to the best of their knowledge that, yes, as of the time I closed the pool, everything was in working order. And then if you find out such that it hasn't been opened for 5 years, you do have recourse in a sense, but also suggesting finding out all of the pool company's information, the person who's maintaining it, looking for, how old the pool filter is, when it was last replaced, if it's a sand or
DE or diatomaceous earth. Yeah.
Yep, all the different types, just the more information that you can gather about those systems, even a heating system in the winter. When was the last time it was serviced? Who was it serviced by? Who's, have you had any parts replaced? The more information, the better. And that's really, that's the only recourse, not really, in my opinion.
From a seller agent perspective, this is the other fun thing, Steve, is I always play the seller and Mary always plays the buyer. And I think that it's really important if you are thinking about putting your house on the market. It's too late now for this year because everybody has their pool closed. I always suggest, if you know that you're thinking about putting your house on the market next year, take a bunch of pictures, take video of the pool running, take video of, the pump running. Everything is time stamped now when you're taking these videos and these pictures. But I think the best advice too is if you're one of those homeowners who tends to close your pool yourself, I would hire a company to close the pool, give it a full, whatever
Once over,
inspection.
you get a report.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and get a report.
Yeah, just for the real estate transaction.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a really good tidbit thinking about it. When you
It's
have
a way to
features.
prevent a lot of headaches down the road, or a lot of questions, or a lot of mistrust, misinformation from being passed along, certainly.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Especially if you're going to make the decision to sell, say in the winter, knowing you have a pool, knowing that's going to be a feature that people are looking for, putting yourself in the best spot to ensure everything's accounted for.
Mhm.
I find that a
Winter is
lot
about the most challenging time to do a home inspection too, especially if you've had a fresh snow or something like that. You get to the house, you can't inspect the roof. You can look at it from the attic area to say, geez, it has leaked in the past or it's leaking today. But, looking physically at the shingles, looking at the grass, the ground, the walkways, the driveways, it's just tough during the wintertime because what you can't see, you really can't, inspect or comment on.
Mhm. Which is another good reason why people should be taking pictures and getting all that information together so at least they can show this is what it looked like. I mean, anything happens over the winter anyways. Gremlins could come in. And actually that's a question. With you mentioned AC units and that they can't be inspected either in the winter cold months. What are your thoughts on people putting covers on those in the winter?
Yeah, that's pro and con. A lot of people that do put the covers on it, I do see that the rodents take that up as a little condo for the wintertime. And they build a nest in there because they got a beautiful cover on top of the AC unit. They're sheltered, and a lot of times electricity is still going to it, so it's a little bit warmer inside. And then they tend to chew the wires and damage the units. And if you turn it on, without knowing they're in there, then all of a sudden it's like I blunder, with rodents.
No.
Oh yeah.
The mice are in there and they're like, ooh, look at this nice felt
Yeah.
blanket,
Yeah, but
Like your car.
most of
You're in
them-
your car in the wintertime.
Yeah, most condensing units are designed to just leave them uncovered and let them go like that on the outside. Plus, a lot of times if you cover it, depending on the manufacturer too, that keeps all the moisture and it stays damp in there. Never gets a chance to dry out. So a lot of times you get a lot more corrosion or rust than what you normally see if you were to just leave it open to the weather.
Wasn't that what happened with the water heaters? Wasn't there a time, like sometimes I still go into these houses that have these like humongous water heaters and they're all padded.
Yeah, like insulated.
Yeah,
Those
insulated.
are the
and
old
everything.
Sepco systems, the big 80-gallon brown tanks. Yep, they used to
Yeah.
rent those and they used to insulate them. And
But you don't suggest that people insulate them anymore, right? They must have their own insulation
Today,
inside.
they're so well insulated. The older ones, if you were to take your hand and put it between the hot water tank and the insulation, you'd feel how warm it is inside there, and that's all the heat loss should have. And you have that 80 gallons you're trying to keep warm 24/7.
Mhm,
The best thing today that they came up with are on-demand systems, which
mhm.
is great.
Oh, Steve, the next time you buy the office, Mark just put a new heating system in the office. You have to check it out. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Now, Dustin, how are we doing on time? Are we at our 7 o'clock break yet? Or
We have
Just
about
about
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
all right. Well, we have 30 seconds. You again are listening to Talk Real Estate Roundtable with the McNamara Broker Team. We are sponsored by Boston Connect Real Estate. And we have Steve Cook from Imperial Inspection Services with us this evening. So any questions that you have after the break, we'd love to hear from you, 781-837-4900. We will be right back. I had something stuck in my tooth that whole time.
Oh, that's annoying.
Mm.
WATD
Why?
FM Marshfield,
Oh, no, still says
WBMS
mouth.
Brockton.
Usually we're doing school stuff.
The South Shore's first
have any
choice for live
tequila.
team
But
coverage
we
of
started
breaking
Weight Watchers
news,
today.
emergency traffic, and severe
Tequila
weather.
is 2 to 4
WATD,
points, right?
streaming online
Yeah.
at 95.9
Tequila is 2 to 4 points, one shot.
WATD.com, and with your smart
Honestly,
speaker,
I
just
still
by
have
saying play
I gave up on my
18 points
WATD.
left.
I'm not doing it wrong. They only gave me 16.
Get the
So there's something wrong with me.
first.
Healthcare personnel and
All
I
I
only
had-
gave Laurie 14 too. How many did you get?
Barr says
How many
no
did you get,
extensive
Sharon?
voter manipulation.
Federal investigators have,
quote,
How many? 24. 24.
Two proposals for COVID-19 relief.
Neither have a clear chance of passing.
This is the CBS News World Roundup. late
Let's
edition.
make
I'm
our own
Steve
Weight
Futterman
Watchers
in
group.
Los Angeles, getting closer to a COVID-19 vaccine.
Okay, ask
In Atlanta
Jess.
today
You
at
were
the
a part of
offices
Weight
the
Watchers. You didn't even
CDC.
know.
I did know. I just wasn't.
You just
using
weren't.
it.
You weren't aware that you were
Decision
paying
on
for it.
who will get the
I paid
vaccine
for the
first.
year.
It will be
I paid for it
healthcare
2 months
workers.
ago.
Dr. Nancy Messonnier with the CDC on the safety of a vaccine.
Miss Yolande.
FDA will not authorize a vaccine unless you're convinced that the vaccines are very safe.
The recommendation now goes to the CDC director for his approval, and then once one is available,
In discussions with the jurisdictions, most of them believe that they can vaccinate all of their healthcare workers within 3 weeks.
Sabrina Cupid for CBS News, Atlanta.
4 weeks after the election, President Trump and many of his supporters are still claiming massive voter fraud and that Mr. Trump won the election. Today, one of Mr. Trump's closest supporters said no. CBS's Skylar Henry.
Attorney General William Barr is breaking with President Trump, saying in an interview with the Associated Press that the Justice Department has not uncovered any evidence of widespread voter fraud that would change the outcome of the 2020 election. The Trump campaign immediately responded, saying in part, "With all due respect to the Attorney General, there hasn't been any semblance of a Department of Justice investigation."
In Delaware today, President-elect Biden added his voice to those calling for Congress to pass a new COVID-19 economic aid package.
Right now, the full Congress should come together and pass a robust package for relief to address these urgent needs.
And a group of senators today, Republicans and Democrats, say they have a plan. Here's CBS's Steve Dorsey.
A bipartisan group of lawmakers is proposing a COVID relief package totaling more than $900 billion. It comes as House Speaker Nancy Pelosi resumes talks on a deal with Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. But Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell is moving forward with his own proposal. Aides say it's similar to a previously introduced $500 billion bill that failed to gain steam.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell was on Capitol Hill today, telling the Senate Banking Committee he can see the end of the financial crisis, but it may need a way to get there.
We'll use our tools until the danger is well and truly past, and it may require help from other parts of government as well, including Congress.
Dow today up 185 points. Now this.
CBS News Radio is your home for breaking news. With our team of reporters around the country and the world, we give you the coverage you can trust.
Good evening. After the intense storm tracked to our west, with all the rain and damaging wind gusts, the air quite mild over all of the Boston South Shore Metro South area, things are changing now with gradually cooling down as we head toward the weekend. Overnight, some clearing, blustery, a low of 36. Going to feel more like 25 to 30 degrees. As we go into Wednesday morning, times of clouds and sunshine, the high 45. And overnight, fair in the low to mid 30s. Thursday, nice to get outside with high pressure nearby. Sunshine, the high 50. Friday, some sun, then clouding up. We could see a shower later in the day, again near 50. Saturday does look to bring a storm coming up from the south, and we'll be on the edge of some rain in the low to mid 50s. For WATD, I'm meteorologist Rob Gilman.
This is Mike McNamara. If you have a financial question and
coming
are too
back to
shy or too busy to call us on our show, McNamara on Money, you can email us at questions@mcnamaraonmoney.com. As certified financial planner practitioners, we are knowledgeable about a number of financial topics. If we can't answer your question,
here we go.
may be able to refer you to someone who can. If you take the time to ask the question, we figure we can make the time to answer it.
We now return to Talk Real Estate, sponsored by Boston Connect Real Estate Services on 95.9 WATD.
And we are back. You are listening to Talk Real Estate Roundtable with Boston Connect Real Estate's broker team. My name is Melissa Wallace, and I'm here with my team members, Sharon McNamara, Mary Baker, and Dustin Hughes. Tonight, we are joined by the one and only Steve Cook. And every single time, I was thinking earlier about when we were doing the thing after you were here when we were in the basement, and I kept getting like tongue twister, tongue tied, and I was getting so upset. But it's, do you remember that? Inspection services. I do
you remember that we did like a little podcast?
Imperial Inspection.
Oh yeah, when we did the podcast. Yeah.
But anyways,
That's so funny.
if you want to listen to any of our past shows, you can go to talkrealestateroundtable.com. You can go to bostonconnect.com. You can follow us on social media. We are the McNamara broker team, and you can also follow Boston Connect Real Estate. You can give us a call here at 781-826-8000. You can give Ben a call tonight at the studio if you want to join in on our conversation, 781-837-4900. And you can just, say hi. If you have any questions for Steve, just let us know. But tonight we're talking about, we were calling it winter woes, but it's not all bad. It's good. It's good information to know. It's
Just something to get prepared for. It's the summertime. You do different things.
Instead of winter woes. Yeah, instead of winter woes, it's winter whoa.
Yeah.
Like how I say realtor, because we're like superheroes. Love it. Anyways, so back to
Easel. Where's
East
the
Hill? Yeah, the East Hill. Can you move the East Hill? All right, Dustin.
Tonight, Steve.
Dustin, get us back on track here.
Impossible.
Wait, I have something. Can I interject? So before we left for the break, Steve, something you had said was, a time to inspect a house is really, really hard when you've had just a fresh powder on the ground. A couple of things like I was thinking of, you're talking about the roof, the foundation, and that's a big one. So I worry about cracks in the foundation when there's snow on the ground.
Right.
And because you might be able to see it from the inside, but not if the inside's finished.
Exactly. And it all depends how deep the snow is on the outside too. If you, a lot of times, most houses you see 6 inches to 12 inches from the bottom, the siding to the, ground. So if you do get, a few inches of snow, that's not going to impact, being able to view it on the outside. And, if it's finished off on the inside, at least you get the outside view of it. But, the inside kind of tells the tale a lot more than the outside, because you have the front steps, the porches and everything that joins up, and you just can't see behind those areas. And that's usually suspect if you can't see.
Well, that's a big one too. Like you just mentioned front steps, the front steps pulling away from the house. We see that all the time.
All the time. Yep.
And if you're not able to really look at that.
And that's that's the second most common area that you do find wood rot and wood destroying insects, is where the front steps or, brick steps join up with the house. And then the other is a lot of times on the decks where they build up, the wooden decks in the back, is a lot of times they'll put flashing or the deck settled. So you have that gap between that first board that touches the house, and it just accumulates in there with all the, water, ice, leaves and stuff, and just kind of sits there and causes the siding to rot, and then just kind of feeds on itself from there and makes an attraction for bugs to get into that too.
It's surprising to me, Steve, how much of that we actually do see. Like that's a big one. I think it happens more often, and it's do you think it's because homeowners just take it upon themselves to build their own decks?
Yep, that's what you see a lot of the times, and some of them are in pretty good shape, and someone just doesn't have a clue. They started watching the YouTube video and their computer died, and they just never got the last sessions on what to do. And,
they had a couple beers while they're doing it, and they're like,
this is too hard. We're
Yep.
Who needs these extra steps?
That's right. Put the beer can under that. We'll prop it up for a couple of weeks.
We're selling it anyways. All right, ladies, what other questions we have?
While we're talking foundation cracking, this doesn't really have to do with winter woes, but explain why you don't want to see a horizontal crack, but like your spider cracks and or your vertical cracks, depending on where they are, why
Yeah, in most houses on a regular foundation, it's common to see up like a half a dozen, cracks going up and down, and up to say a 1/16 of an inch. It's not uncommon to see that. Once they start to creep toward the 1/4 of an inch, and larger if they're going up and down, is if it's a new house, you really want to watch it because you don't have the test of time. If it's an old house that's been around for 40 years, chances are it's probably stopped settling if it's only like an 1/8 of an inch to a 1/4 of an inch. But on a new house, it's say like a year old and you see something like that, it's really suspect. So at the next stage, you got to get someone in like Crack X or Crack Team to repair that, and you kind of use that as a barometer, whether or not it's moving or not. But when you're buying a house, you just don't have that luxury of the test of time to see what's happening. But if you go in there and you see the crack that goes up and down, and the foundation, if you run your finger across it, and one section's closer to you or one section's out, that's a real problem because the foundation's actually shifting. And then the other is if the cracks go left to right on the foundation, you don't see it too often, but that's really bad. That means
And you hope you never do.
And for some reason, the foundation's undermined, or a lot of times you go to an area where you have like the marsh or soft ground around there. When they built the house, the weight of the concrete compressed into the soils down below. Sometimes if there's, moss, or, say if they dug out the hole too much and then the guy backfilled it and didn't allow the dirt, to set again. So you put all that weight on it, the foundation will tend to compress into the soil, and that causes the problem. But usually left and right, that's not a good way to look at a house. Sometimes that's the best way to look at that is in your rearview mirror as you're driving away to the next list.
I was literally gonna say, I don't know why it's bad. I just know you've always told me it's really, really bad. So I see that. If I've seen that, I've been like, we're not buying this house. You can't buy it.
You don't see it too often. Maybe 1 out of 1,000 homes I'll see something like that, and it's usually built on or a side of a hill, or something which kind of adds to that situation happening.
We did the addition on our house, and we cut through like the existing foundation into the back area, like underneath the family room that we built. And that's where we moved the oil tank to back there, and the heating system is back there. And since we've been cleaning back there, I really hadn't seen that back wall behind the oil tank in a while. And I noticed like it almost looked like a patch, like on the foundation. And I asked Mark, I was like, did we have a crack in this foundation at one point and it got patched? And he's like, what are you talking about? And I pointed at it to him, and he said, no, that's from the different pores, I guess, from the cement.
Yeah, you can always tell how many concrete trucks came out there. So as they're dumping the concrete into the forms, the color may be a little different from concrete truck A from concrete truck B. And you see sometimes those lines going down at an angle.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's doing. Yeah.
And sometimes, a lot of times, the forms, if they have, the forms will leave an imprint or a discoloration on the foundations too.
Yeah. I don't know if he's listening or not. He's downstairs, but I was like, I don't know if I'm going to believe him or not. So that's another question for me to ask Steve when I see
he
him.
just texted me and said that's okay, and that's exactly what it is. So.
Perfect. One of the things that Mary had brought up earlier when we were talking about the different topics, and I thought that this was a good one, and I don't even know if you can really answer it 100%, is when you're doing radon inspections, first of all, can you just explain to our listeners the different types of radon inspections, yours versus the canister?
Yep.
And in the winter, do you feel as if you could potentially get a higher reading based on a lot of snow cover or frozen ground?
Right. If the ground is frozen or you got a good snow cover out there, if radon is present, it's usually going to be more elevated than, say, in the middle of August or July during the year. Because if you think of radon gas, it just kind of permeates up through the ground. And if you give something that's going to lock it in, it's going to, tend to, filter towards, say, your house. And then, a lot of times if it's a negative pressure house, the air is drawn into the home. Like when you turn on, say, the fan above the stove, if it goes to the outside and it's a nice powerful one, sometimes that would create a negative air pressure inside the home. Same with bathroom fans, if you have 2 or 3 of them going on inside, and that will draw air into the home.
Can you tell our listeners a little bit more about the different types of testing that there is, and a little bit more about radon?
Sure. There's two ways of testing. One is electronically, and they'll set a box inside the house. It's probably about 12 inches by 6 inches and 3 inches high. And what it does, we set it, and then we come back after 48 hours and we plug, a laptop into it or a portable printer, and it'll print out the results. And most machines will give you an hour by hour readout, and then it gives you the cumulative, what you're looking for the results. And a favorable result would be anything 3.9 or below. Once it hits the magic number of 4.0 and they measure it in picocuries, that would be considered elevated, and it'd be highly recommended to put a mitigation or reduction system in the home. The other way of testing for radon gas is either with what they call liquid scintillation or charcoal cans. And device is placed in the home, has to stay a minimum 48 hours. It's sealed up, then it's either brought to the lab or you put it in the mail. And once the lab gets it, they test it, and they'll let you know what the reading is. And a lot of times you have 2 or 3 days to play around with, after the test. Both tests are fine as long as they're placed and set up properly and sealed, before you put it in the mail. Both are going to give you proper testing. Just the only thing with the machine, you get a physical readout, and it kind of gives you a chronological event of hour by hour. So let's say if someone disturbs the machine, 4 hours after it's inside the house, or the kids go downstairs and play with it, it will register on the machine that something was done to it. Either it was tampered with, it was moved, it was unplugged. And then a lot of times if you get a consistent reading, and this is with the machine only, of say like 1.4, 1.7, and all of a sudden it goes 0, 0, 0, 0. Someone's opened the door or ventilated downstairs. And then those type of tests, we can't say, geez, it's a true test. It needs to be done again.
What I was curious about was, so one of the office policies that we have at Boston Connect Real Estate is that I request that our agents do not pick up the radon canisters for their clients. They can meet them there. If they're doing the machine, yeah, you can do that for them. But I always worry about like a false reading of some sort and something maybe coming back from a liability standpoint. But if you think about it too, I mean, those little canisters, I'm not saying anyone would do this, but I guess I watch a lot of Dateline in 2020. So I think that there's always some type of people not doing the right thing. We've seen it with the machines, but if you just went outside and untwisted that and just stuck it out into the air, is that going to change it? Or does the charcoal do something where it's sort of...
Nope, that's going to negate or lower the reading a little bit. And I've been on ones where I'm doing a home inspection or say a lead paint inspection on the house, and some other company is doing the radon test inside. I've seen cans tipped upside down. I've seen books put on top of the cans during the test, and they say I'm there to do a lead paint or something other, so I don't get involved with that. But you can always Google how to how to defeat it or get a lower one, especially if they know that it's been high in the past.
Yeah.
Well, like a lie detector test.
Well, pretty much. And we have this is brand new within the last
your shoe.
On the radon testing is we don't use the portable printer anymore. We plug a device in there called an air console that goes into the same machines that we have, and that connects wirelessly to your cell phone, and the results are uploaded to your cell phone, put in a report type setup, and emailed or text out at the time of the pickup.
Huh.
So you don't get the paper printout, you get an actual report right on your cell phone before we leave the property that day.
I like that.
That's brand new within the last week.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
we've been experimenting with it for the last 2 months, and Scott's the expert on doing that now.
That's great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect. So we have, how much time do we have left now? Oh, we have plenty of time to talk about more things. Was there anything that you guys, Dustin or Mary, Melissa, that you wanted to bring up or ask Steve? Or Steve, were there any things that you wanted to hit upon?
No, I think we pretty much touched base on everything on what to do, for the winter time to get your house ready to, get the least amount of problems, out of the winter season.
Mm-hmm. What about you guys? Any questions for Steve?
I wish we had, and maybe even Steve can talk about this, but I wish we had Mark McNamara on and talking about like winterizing your home when you're not going to be home. Like a lot of people have second homes down the Cape, or they have, a house in places like Hull and Situate where Mark does a lot of work. And I asked him a couple of weeks ago, I was like, have you started winterizing yet? He goes, oh yeah, I got my first house tomorrow. So, and I just remember being us a couple years ago, 2 years ago, being up at the Mount Washington, cozied up, taking a tour of the hotel, and Mark's
Nice and
like, you
warm.
realize that that's the second coldest place on the planet right now?
They wouldn't let us outside.
And he's like freezing in
Aw.
someone's garage, like in 10 feet of water. It was
Yeah,
terrible.
that was in Hull. I think
Yeah.
it was a Mercedes floating around in there. And
But maybe some like top tips for like winterizing your home if you're not going to be around.
Yeah, well, usually winterizing is only one thing to do is have it professionally done. Yeah,
Best.
no
Gotta
more
say
on
that.
that. And for a homeowner to do it, a lot of times they just know don't know the little things that need to be done. And if a pipe breaks, it's not going to leak right away because it's going to be frozen. Then as soon as you come back up and you turn the heat on, you think everything's okay. The water's not working, and you're saying, "Geez, what's going on?" And all of a sudden, it looks like a sprinkler system going off in your house, and now the pipes are thawed. So
Yeah.
you always have it professionally done. There's not too much other than the outside faucets that a homeowner should do. And if you're going away, for the winter season, have it professionally done.
Mhm. Well, I think another thing too, when we're talking about the plumbing, and by the way, Mark is listening, because when I made my little comment about not trusting that he knew what was going on with the wall, he gave me a thumbs up on my phone. So he is listening. So I asked him to come on up if he wants to talk about winterizing. But I do agree about doing it professionally. I mean, Mark has this big condenser on a trailer that he brings around with him, and he blows out all of the heating systems and all of the pipes and everything. So, and even and that's the thing, is you need to know when to hire a professional. I mean, he probably could very much do our pool, but every year we have a sunshine pool, close the pool, because that's what they do. And that's what they know how to do. So I think that, he has a lot of people who will say that they're going to, open up their house themselves or winterize their house themselves. And then he doesn't guarantee the opposite of whatever they asked him to do, because he doesn't know what they're doing with it. But it's interesting, Steve, I'm sure you've seen, Mary, Melissa, I'm not sure if you haven't, Dustin, I'm assuming you haven't, ever seeing a house that was, remember when we were going through all those foreclosures? The foreclosures, the banks were going in with sending companies in saying, oh, the house was winterized. You would open the toilet, you'd see blue stuff in the toilet, but they were not really winterizing these houses. And then we would have, the heating system, everything would freeze from top to bottom. And oh my gosh, what a mess.
And once they got the heat going on inside the house, it just starts dripping out of there. Oh, there's Mark.
Yes, Mark.
There he is.
Mark, why don't you introduce yourself to all of our listeners?
We have Mr. Mark McNamara here with us, if you're listening to WATD or if you're on Facebook right now. So we're talking about, Steve gave the advice about winterizing, and we have a couple minutes left. So what are the bigger mistakes that you see people making, not taking care of their properties in the winter when it comes to the heating system or winterizing?
Well, the heating system, basically, it's mostly just service. How to get it serviced in the fall, have it all checked out and so forth. But as far as winterizing and so forth,
summer houses and stuff.
Well, I have a big compressor, so we go around and we blow the house out dry. We call the town, shut the water off in the street, and then blow all the water pipings dry, so there's nothing in there that can freeze. Water tank gets emptied. We antifreeze the washing machines, all the toilets, the sink traps, drains, and so on and so forth. Dishwashers. So then basically you don't have to worry about it. I mean, we do a service in the fall, and then we come back in the spring, and then we put everything on. And when the homeowners come home, they just basically go take a shower or do whatever they have to do. It's all done for them.
Plus, when you de-winterize the home, you look for any small leaks or anything that may have occurred, or.
Yeah, I mean, I have a list of customers that I've been doing over the years, and we repair anything that we see. Or I mean, I have a bag of keys of probably 25 or 30 houses. I pretty much have free will to anything that they want done, fix it. I mean, if it's anything major, obviously I would go in front of them first, but all the small stuff, faucet drips, leaky toilets or whatever, just fix them and be done with it. And they're happy to do so.
So that's good advice, because you don't want your pipes freezing. And what about just a regular homeowner for a regular, you know what I mean? Not something that's getting closed up for the winter.
I'd obviously shut off all the Silcox, drain them, take the hoses off and so forth. Any of the places, we deal with a lot of places that might have some crawl spaces and stuff. Just make sure those latches and on the crawl spaces are locked and all the pipes are insulated and so forth. Some of these houses that were summer homes, all of a sudden they become winter homes and they just think everything's, hunky-dory. But, you just got to insulate some of the cold areas and stuff and get those drafts.
The deck that got enclosed, right? But Steve, you notice those things when you're doing the inspections anyways, right?
Oh, sure. And you can see where there's been problematic, and all of a sudden you see, copper pipe, and you see a piece of, PEX pipe or a shark bite or something like that. That's an area that's been repaired before in the past. And usually if it's toward the outside, that's where it froze up and someone did a repair on that. So, that area possibly could be problematic again.
We did have a 5-minute bell, just so everybody knows. I do have a little bit of a sneak peek that I wanted to get in there before we.
Yes, I just have one other thing to say, just to let Steve know. I used the word Estabrook in a sentence yesterday, just letting you know, because that's something that you taught me. So, but yeah, Melissa, before you get to your sneak peek, I want to make sure that Steve gets an opportunity to tell our listeners how they can get in touch with them. If you're buying a home, or if you're thinking about selling a home in the spring, I think you should be doing a home inspection. So Steve, how can people get in touch with you if they would like to do that?
Sure. The best way is to give us a call directly. It's 1-800-440-1141. Again, 1-800-440-1141. You can talk to Paula in the office, and she's there 7 days a week from 8 o'clock to 6 o'clock at night. Or you can reach us by way of our website, which is Imperial Inspection Services.com. And also on the website, there's a lot of material there talking about like that vermiculite insulation, asbestos, lead paints. There's a lot of reading material that you can look at, before too.
Perfect. Awesome. And we'll have all that information for our listeners if they need it. They can get in touch with us easily too at 781-826-8000, bostonconnect.com. And Mel, why don't you take away your sneak peek that you have for Kristen Howlett?
Yes, so Kristen Howlett, who is a full-time realtor here at Boston Connect Real Estate, has a brand new listing coming on tomorrow in Bridgewater. The address is 25 Chris John Way. Again, that's in Bridgewater. It is a beautiful custom Victorian. This one has 5 bedrooms. 5, guys.
Wow.
5 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. It has a 4-car garage, and it is on 2 acres of land. It's nature reserve, and it is actually coming on the market tomorrow. So she's going to be doing an open house there this Saturday and Sunday from 12 to 2. It's going to be in the 7s. So if you're looking in that price range, if you're looking for something with a lot of room, 4-car garage, 2 acres of land in Bridgewater, this is going to be perfect for you. So again, the address is 25 Chris John Way in Bridgewater, and she will be there Saturday and Sunday, 12 to 2.
Perfect. Mary, can you tell everybody about our listing in Hanover that we'll be doing an open house at this weekend?
Yeah, we have Country Road. I always say way. I don't know why. 9 Country Road in Hanover. It's in an awesome cul-de-sac neighborhood. Just under an acre lot. It has a brand new septic system that's going to be going in prior to closing. It's on market right now for $499. We're going to be doing an open house there on Sunday from 11 to 1. It's 3 bedrooms, has this cute little master half bath, lots of space, finished basement downstairs, newer systems pretty much throughout the house. So needs some updating, but that you got to put your love into it. It's an awesome neighborhood. Like awesome. I can't say enough about the neighbors that are over there. They have been so kind. So yeah,
location is great right off of 123. So it's really convenient for people who want to get into the city or even to the commuter rail. Very, very close. Dustin, any final thoughts and final words for you?
No, just a big thank you to Steve. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure.
And to Mark McNamara.
Yes, and to Mark.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And thanks to our listeners at WATD. We'll be back next week. No idea what our topic is. We'll probably know about an hour before. So tune in next week. And Steve, thank you so much for joining us on short notice.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you later. Bye, everybody. Good job.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
I was more saying bye to you guys because I knew